Bellingham Commission meeting.
Here.
Commissioner Shepard.
Also here.
Commissioner Briscoe's here. We'll read the advisory meeting committee schedule. Marina Advisory Committee, the MAC, will be here on April 8th at 6 p.m. The Port Administration Office, Harbor Center Commission Chambers, right here where we're at, in person only. The Bellingham International Airport Advisory Committee, the BIAC, will be April 17th at 4 p.m. And you can join by Zoom meeting, and that's on our website, the link to get in. And it's also in person, and the in-person area is at the Aircraft Rescue Firefighting ARF Station at 2005 West Bakerview Road at the airport in Bellingham. We'll go to public comment. We have 5 folks signed up. And if I mispronounce a name, correct me, please. The first person is Tony Peruka. Is that you? Yes. Okay. Please give us your name and address. Yep.
Tony Peruka, 5450 Salish Road, 30. Check. Better?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you get all that? Let me just.
Yep. No, it's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm here to request that the port do something about the large number of birds nesting on the marina breakwater in Blaine. They contribute significantly to the pollution problem we have in the water there. They also foul, pun intended, the docks and boats, which in turn causes all the tenants to use more detergent and more water, and it'll go through a lot of effort. They provide a food source for rats, which can further foul the environment. And now that the more dangerous strains of avian influenza are spreading, they're at risk to becoming spreaders of the virus to local mammals of all kinds. Migratory birds are some of the most likely to spread the virus. And here we're talking about migratory cormorants and both the residential and transitory gulls. Once that virus settles into a flock, it'll spread via rodents and to other predators, and it'll be uncontrollable. A lot of people think that's not really a major risk to humans. The highest impact risk is to livestock in the area, both poultry as well as cattle and all mammals of any kind, including sea mammals. The Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife confirmed the virus was present in the state back in 2022 in May. It was first found in poultry flocks, and then shortly after in wild birds. So it is already spreading in our state. The avian influenza, AI for short, does exist in migratory and flock birds naturally. But here we're more concerned about the H5N1 virus, which is the more dangerous strain that is spreading nationally. In February of 2025, the NIH reported a highly pathogenic strain of AI resulted in large-scale cormorant mortalities in other diverse water birds on the East Coast. In February of 2024, UC Davis study determined that it adapted to marine mammals. And already Whatcom County has had 3 recent confirmed cases: a bobcat in January of 15, a great horned owl, that's January of 2025, a great horned owl in November of 24, and a snow goose in November of 24. So we see how the virus spreads to different kinds of animals. It's only a matter of time before it becomes more dangerous to humans, and most scientists agree. The marina is overrun with these cormorants using the breakwater. I don't know if you've ever been by that part of the marina in the summertime particularly, but it's pretty evident that we're inhaling their feces as we go by there. Otherwise, we wouldn't be smelling it. And it has been determined that not only transmitted via direct contact, but the virus is also transmitted via inhalation or aspirated as airborne particles. I have been to 40 different marinas, probably in 5 years of owning my vessel, from Tacoma to Toba, and I've never seen anything like what is going on in the Blaine Marina. not even close. So my ask is that the port do something humanely to get rid of those birds or to discourage them from nesting in that facility. There's many things that can be done that are not harmful to them, but would discourage them from using that breakwater as their nesting ground. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dave Branch?
Hello, my name is Dave Branch, and I'm a tenant, live aboard in Blaine Harbor. I have some pictures here. I would like the Port of Bellingham to address the derelict vessels that are in Blaine Harbor. I know of between 17 to 20 of them, and they're not being taken care of. I don't know if they're under the port's protection or somebody else, but if they're not taking care of them on the surface, they're definitely not taking them care of on the bottom. And you guys well know that zincs get consumed. And once they're consumed, it puts electricity in the water and makes it a hot harbor, which is making all of our maintenance on the other vessels more expensive for us. Also, if you look at those pictures on Gate 1 and on Gate 2, we have pump out garages for the pump out carts, and there is lichen growing on the top of those. And I've been a tenant there for over 10 years. And you know how long it takes for lichen to grow. Nothing's being done on the maintenance on the docks for slippery, the moss, or anything else. And I'd like to see if it's being addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Branch?
I have more pictures that Dave didn't give you.
Thank you.
I'm Jennifer Branch, and I'm going to follow up with some of the stuff Dave said. I'm also a tenant, and we've been liveaboard and tenants for over 10 years in Blaine. With the bird issue, we have not had our docks power washed probably in over a year, and I've only seen it once or twice in the 10 years that I've been a tenant that have actually power washed our docks. I've been from Blaine all the way to Seattle and back, and we've stayed at the Guest Talk in Bellingham, and I've seen them, a landscape company that came in and power washed the docks, and we went home right away to Blaine, explained how come we can't get the same maintenance as Bellingham, and they said, well, that's Bellingham, we do things different in Blaine, or it's an environmental thing, we can't power wash the docks in Blaine. So we have lots of issues with the bird poop, the lichen, the moss. Also, our life ring stations and ladders are unsafe. And I'm just concerned we're spending a lot of money and we get 4% bump every year. We're not getting the maintenance we deserve. We have one washer and one dryer that works most of the time, even though we're supposed to have two at Gate 2. We have 3 gates, but we only have one set of washers and dryers. They don't work half the time. We also, the derelict vessels, there's a lot of abandoned vessels, and I know every year we're asked to provide our insurance, and in our lease agreement, it says that we have to have running vessels, and they have to have motors, engines, and proof of insurance, and I know at least of 2 or 3 on my gate alone that don't have any engines, and they're still allowed to be in the marina. So that's a concern of mine as well. If one of those breaks away, I know there's one derelict vessel behind me and one derelict vessel next to me. Who's going to pay for it if that boat runs into my boat? So those are the things I'd like for you guys to address as the port.
Thank you. Carly James, am I saying correct?
That's correct. Hello, commissioners. Is that a good distance?
You're fine.
Yeah, okay, great. My name is Carly James, and I'm here representing the Granary Commercial Tenant Collective. We are 7 locally owned small businesses who rent space in the granary owned by Harcourt Developments. My business is Bison Bookbinding and Letterpress. As the first commercial building at the redeveloped waterfront, we face unique problems that put the success of our respective small businesses at risk. We've prepared a letter outlining our challenges, and I will bring that up to you. But for the sake of time, I'd like to read just a portion of that letter discussing what we feel is our key problem, and that is insufficient parking. There's not enough parking to accommodate the traffic needed to support our businesses and attract new businesses to the granary and the area. The flow of traffic to the area is set to increase with the return of warm weather. What should be a welcome event is instead a cause for concern and anxiety for tenants at the granary. The gravel lot at its current size fills to capacity by mid-morning, leaving our customers unable to park and patronize our businesses. We therefore request the gravel lot along Granary Avenue be extended to West Chestnut Street. We understand the extended lot might be temporary as eventually more development will come, but for now it would be a much-needed pressure relief valve. Representatives from both Harcourt and the port have indicated this area is contentious because of ongoing litigation. Harcourt tells us it's unable to provide more parking because the property is on port land. The port says it can't commit to expanding the lot because the property is in Harcourt's master development agreement. So we're sure you can understand our frustration in hearing both parties blame each other for inaction. Honestly, at this point, we don't care why expanding the lot hasn't happened yet. We care about making it happen now for this summer and for summers to come, and for those of us who are so deeply invested in making the new waterfront thrive. We believe our business's ability to achieve success at the granary is a beacon to our community. Our success will encourage interest and investment from businesses local and beyond. Our potential failure because occupancy was granted without the appropriate infrastructure in place sends the signal that the new waterfront is a high-risk location, poorly planned and executed. Thank you for listening. Can I bring you my letters? Okay.
Thank you, Carly. I believe it's Annie Fairchild.
Hi, I also live at 5450 Salish Road, and our boat is Gratitude in Blaine. And I just don't know if any of you have been up there recently in the last year. I'm assuming some of you have. You've looked, kind of nodded your head.
My boat moor's there.
Well, there you go. So we are on GDoc, and when we come in from being out of town, much like Tony said, the absolutely overwhelming, disgusting smell of 2,000 birds worth of shit in a 90-degree day that you're inhaling is off the charts disgusting. It is so unacceptable. It is just mind-bogglingly horrifying that we are breathing in, again, 2,000 birds worth of shit. We've never smelled it from any other marina. We've been, as Tony said, all the way down from Tacoma up to Toba, and it is unprecedented. And I hope that you will do something about it soon. Thank you.
Just so to make us not look so bad, go to Ventura Harbor. I fished out of there. You gag when you go into the harbor from the albatross manure on the breakwater right there. It's worse in there. It's bad. So I understand. I understand the smell and the mess it makes. You know, I had seiners tied out on the outside row, and you come every day and you clean the shells and the poop, and you can't hardly work because you're getting. But there's also, I believe, it's a bird sanctuary there, if I'm not mistaken. So it's going to be we'll try to address it. We'll see if there's something we can do.
Just the breakwater is not a sanctuary, though, right? No, it's not.
Thank you.
No, it's on the other side of the road. They have wings. Anyways, thank you for bringing that forward. That completes the folks we have on the sign-up sheet. Is there somebody else here that would like to speak? Please step forward and state your name and where you live.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill Lidicote. I am the president of the Fairhaven Neighbors Association. About a little over a month ago, I attended a tour briefing of the contemplated or proposed cleanup of the Harris Avenue shipyard. And one of the questions I had was, what were the plans for the removal of the contaminated soil that is contemplated to be removed? And the answer I got was that that was up to the contractor to decide. So I think that's probably, I hope that's not the only answer to the question. I have some other questions related specifically to the removal. How much contaminated soil are we talking about? I've done some calculations based on the fact that it's 5 acres and 2 feet worth of soil are to be removed, but I don't pretend to be an authority on this subject. I just have questions. So how much are we talking about? And how many truckloads of soil are we talking about? Because I also understand that the route for removing that soil is going to be right through the center of the Fairhaven business district, the village, up Harris, right on 10th, the truck route, basically. So how many truckloads are we talking about? When will the project start, and when will and what will be the duration based on the volume of soil to be removed? My understanding is that it will be in the fall, which would be the beginning of the peak season for a lot of retailers in the Fairhaven commercial area. And so I'm also wondering if the impact that might have on their sales has been taken into account. Right now, all I have are questions. I realize I'm past the end of the public comment period on that. I didn't find out about it until fairly late in the process. But I do think that the impact, I guess another question would be, does the impact on the neighborhood, is that part of the design criteria of the project? So those are my questions.
So at some point, when we get a little closer to the cleanup, we'll be doing a presentation to the commission and awarding a contract, and all this information will come out. But if you don't want to wait till that, you can give me a call, and Brian Gowan and I can sit down with you and walk through what we do know at this point. We don't have all the answers yet because we're still designing and bidding this, but we can walk you through where we are to date. I'm Rob Fix. You can easily find me through the port.
Okay, I'll be in touch with you.
Yeah, we'll set something up. We can meet.
Say again?
I said we can set something up and get together and talk about it.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to public comment or ask questions at this point? Okay, having said that, I'll give that back to Tracy. We'll move to the consent agenda. Tracy, if you please.
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through D.
I don't have any questions at this time.
I have none. None. Thank you.
I have none either.
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through D.
Commissioner Bell?
Yes.
Commissioner Shepard?
Yes.
Commissioner Briscoe's a yes as well. It carries 3-0. Moves us.
Authorize Resolution 1420 for the 2025 Comprehensive Scheme of Harbor Improvement Plan.
Thanks, Tracy. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brian Gowan, Director of Environmental and Planning Services. Just going to check if I can, I know there was some Zoom issues. Can I pull up the website here off of this? Okay. That's good. Sorry about that.
Need like music or something that comes in when we have different.
Yes, sorry about that. This action item is related to the Comprehensive Scheme of Harbor Improvements Plan, or the CSHIP. We had, at the last commission meeting, if you recall, we had a public hearing on that. We didn't receive any comments during that hearing. This is then the action now to adopt that. We also had issued that a SEPA determination during that time frame as well. We received a couple comments. They were didn't have any substantive changes. They were basically, one of them said we didn't have a comment, so it was a comment telling us that we didn't have a comment. And then the other one was really more questions about unrelated issues that we've addressed through a separate correspondence. So no additional changes from the public comment period, but I will say that we did make one tweak to the plans after we presented to the commission last time, and it was related to a snippet of parcels that we had in the one of the maps. After that discussion, I did look up the definition of a snippet, and it is just a small piece or thing. So there wasn't really worth calling that out as a defined part of this comp scheme. So we have changed that map to just remaining port properties in Sumas. So that was the only change that was made. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, but staff recommends approval.
Commissioner Shepard.
I'm glad we got past the snippet debacle. I don't have any other questions. We had a chance to discuss this at our last meeting and get some input. I think it's a good plan, and I don't have any further questions.
Commissioner Bell.
Did you have an open house or a charrette?
No, we didn't even workshop it.
No.
We just made a decision. We didn't even workshop it.
Everything's fine, thank you.
And I have no questions. So Tracy, if you please.
Motion to authorize resolution number 1420 for the 2025 Comprehensive Scheme of Harbor Improvement Plan.
Commissioner Shepard.
Yes.
Commissioner Bell.
Yes.
Commissioner Briscoe's a yes as well. Motion second.
Motion to authorize the executive director to execute a consent decree for cleanup actions at Harris Avenue Shipyard site.
Thanks, Tracy. And this one does have a slide. If you could pull that one up for me. I think we've got an individual slide on just a map showing this area. And so while that's getting pulled up, this action is related to the Harris Avenue Shipyard, which we just heard a public comment on, and I'd be happy to stick after and discuss this a little bit further with the bill from the Fairhaven. But this is a legal document now. This is an agreement with the Department of Ecology, a consent decree. We've gone through a number of steps to get to this point as we've gone through the investigation phase, through a remedial investigation and feasibility study. The Department of Ecology selected a cleanup action plan, and then we have then been in the design phase of that work moving that forward. We have broken it up into two different areas. One is an upland area, and then the other is the in-water area. So the upland area is the project we're talking about today, which is soil and groundwater contamination from historic shipyard practices. And we will address the in-water area as a separate phase as that design moves forward on a separate track. So right now we've got a consent decree before you for consideration, which will address liability with the state. It adopts the cleanup action plan, and then once that's executed, that'll allow us to go out to bid and start the construction process this fall, as was indicated. So the cleanup action for the upland includes the removal of the upper 2 feet of soil. It removes a significant number of the older structures out there that are just kind of old sheds or shacks to allow us to access that. It does retain some of the structures that are out there, and we'll work around those. There's a deeper excavation closer to the water where we had some groundwater contamination that actually goes down to about 8 or 9 feet. And then it'll recap the site. I'll install some new stormwater infrastructure and some treatment for that as well. So this has been underway for a long time. One of the first MODCA cleanup sites in Bellingham Bay. It was part of the original 12 sites that were part of the Bellingham Bay Action Team. And it's a big milestone to get us moving forward on this project. So with that, staff recommends approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Mr. Shepard.
Sure. I want to try and address a couple questions of mine, and then maybe we could talk over some of Mr. Liddicott's questions as well.
Yeah, you bet.
Let's just kind of step back from a funding perspective. Do we have any ballpark on costs for this, and where does the MOTCA funding fit in for this?
Yeah, this one is, the upland work is about 6.5 million. That's the most recent engineer's estimate. We do have an existing MOTCA grant for this work that will cover half of that. We have also budgeted for this, knowing that this was coming from the operation, or from the environmental operations budget. We also had a settlement a number of years ago with Univar, which was one of the original operators out here. So we had a settlement with them that funds the other half of this as well. So that was, I think, a $14 million settlement at the time. So that covers this upland work, plus it'll also cover some of the in-water work. So we're funded fully on this project.
Okay, good. Well, the MOTCA is particularly of interest to us because we're watching the state legislature have a budget process that may be sweeping some $100 million out of the MOTCA funds. And so anytime we see that happening, it puts extra pressure on funds that we really use for great impact here in Bellingham and Blaine Harbors throughout the state. So it's of particular concern, and it's just on us to always highlight these MOTCA projects and their impact.
Right. That's right, and this is exactly why we really want to keep these moving. One of the messages we've heard from the legislature is that this process is so slow for lots of reasons that the money gets allocated and then doesn't get spent. So when we can get into construction where you're really spending those grants down, it shows to the legislature that dollars are getting put to use.
So many of our cleanups involve capping and on-site containment. This is one that we're actually going to be removing soils and taking them somewhere else. Is that a level of contamination that's too high for on-site treatment, or what's the rationale for that level of cleanup?
Yeah, there's two factors that go into that. Usually, in the area where I kind of highlighted that we have a deeper excavation closer to the water, that's where we actually have some groundwater contamination, and that's because there's contaminated soil that's in contact with the groundwater. So you want to remove that, get that out. That's a pathway. The Department of Ecology, through the RIFS process, looks at, where is contamination present, what kind, how is it moving around or not, so you can really identify what the solutions for that site-specific scenario would be. And so in that area, we have groundwater contamination near the shoreline that could be getting out into Bellingham Bay. So by removing that source, you address that groundwater pathway to the bay. And then in the rest of the site, there's a couple factors. It's really kind of, because from former shipyard operations, historic operations, that it's not that the level of contamination is higher, it's just harder. It's a gravel surface. It's kind of shallow in the upper 2 feet. We need to regrade the site in order to get the stormwater to work correctly. So by stripping that off, removing it, and then we're not removing it all. There's actually still some probably below 2 feet, but that's the area that 2 feet of soil is considered protective for direct contact. So the Department of Ecology says, okay, in this upland, especially in an industrial area, if you have 2 feet of clean soil on top of some contamination, you've eliminated that pathway for people that are working on the site or being present on the site. So we're stripping off those 2 feet and then bringing back up 2 feet of clean fill on top of that. That also allows us to grade it for stormwater. So all of those pieces go into play on a kind of decision basis. We could have paved the entire site with a thinner lift of pavement to a few inches, but because of the operations here, we chose to have gravel. So in that scenario, we needed to remove the upper 2 feet.
Okay. And do we have an idea about where the material is going to go? This probably has to go to a certified landfill, and how many trucks may we anticipate? How do we work with the tenants in the region to make the impact as minor as possible?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so typically with this type of material, I think there's a few options. It's a Subtitle D landfill, which is the typical landfill where your backyard garbage goes to. So it's not a hazardous waste landfill or anything like that. Or you could also, depending on the contractor, if they can work with the disposal facility, sometimes there's options for reuse of this type of material. They can get put into asphalt, other types of things. There can be a kind of construction debris type of landfill that can take these. It all depends on the data of the specific type. But it has to be an approved facility. It couldn't go into, pit reclamation, a mine reclamation or anything like that. It has to be disposed of at a certified facility, which could also include reuse of it in a material. So that's kind of when we said, sometimes it's up to the contractor. It's the means and methods. They may have an avenue that they've chose to go down. They might use a different landfill. Another contractor might use a different landfill, and the pricing, impacts their bid response. The number of trucks, I just looked that up this morning because I got your comments just today, so I had not known that those questions were out there. And I just had looked that up, and it's about, I think we're estimating about 11,000 tons, 11,000 cubic yards, which is about, there's 10 yards in a dump truck, so that's 1,000 dump trucks maybe. But if you do a truck and pup, cut that in half, so it's about 500 dump trucks maybe. That all, though, will be over the course of, a number of months, right? This isn't just we're rolling them out. I mean, there's a lot of prep work. There's a stormwater plan that is required we're going to have to manage it kind of systematically. So there will be, it's not just, 100 trucks a day for over 5 days. This is going to be spread out over a number of months.
And does that include both the new fill that will also come in?
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I hadn't thought about
Do we have
that.
to double that
Yeah,
number?
you're right. So now we'll work with, we can work with the Fairhaven, the downtown Fairhaven group to let them know big construction projects happening. And yeah, we can put this on our list. Like Rob had said, we're still in the final stages of design, so we've got some time to kind of do a little bit of outreach.
And there's two other options, I would imagine, that we can actually put rail cars down there, right? And take them to an intermodal yard and have.
Oh, right.
And have them put on a rail instead of being on the road.
Right. Yeah, that's
Maybe a short haul.
Right,
Up
yeah.
to a transfer station to go to a rail.
That's correct. Yeah.
The
that would
second
be-
one, can we get a barge in there and we can stack containers on a barge and that can go up the Columbia River to the exact same Subtitle D landfill that this would be? So it wouldn't necessarily be all on the roads. Is that a true statement?
Yeah, that could be an option. I think that those are, we do have some scenarios where we are having trucks, with a Connex box on them that are getting loaded with soil, and then they go up to a transfer station and then on rail out. That wouldn't avoid the immediate downtown impact, but it would get the trucks off the road for the long haul. Yeah, but it is typical that we don't assign means and methods to contractors, because that's, if they have a method that works well, that is a little bit cheaper, then there'll be an advantage for them under their bid, which will bring their bids in lower. So we don't typically do that. We can, I think after this we could, and also, so this doesn't really, this discussion doesn't impact the consent decree decision either. Like, these are all, that's just the legal mechanism that allows us to do the cleanup. But before we go out to bid, we could look at having some other type of,
We could request to have a lesser number of trucks involved in the project.
Yeah, I think these would at least be good conversations
Yeah.
for us to have as we go into bidding, so that any potential contractor we hire has an idea that these are community concerns.
Sure, yeah. I'll talk with the engineering team on that and see what kind of specifications we can, or language we can put in there and report back before we go out to bid.
We don't, do they have a siding they could use there?
No, they don't. I think the most likely scenario here outside of trucking would be to barge down to the Duwamish and do the transfer down there. And that's been done out of Bellingham quite a bit. So it's a tried and true method.
Actually be a lot faster. Barge right there.
Yeah, it's the one we see most often, I think. So I got to believe it's the most economical.
It's pretty typical for dredging operations. It's pretty uncommon for upland soil like this, because you'd have to, you're putting it in, when you're dredging it, you have a barge right next to it. You're dredging, you put it right into the barge, and then the barge goes. It's already in the water. This is one where you'd be digging up soil, transporting it out to a barge somewhere, putting it on a barge, taking it down to Seattle, taking it off a barge, putting it into rail, putting it, down, and then over. So there'll be a lot more steps to it for upland. But, I think it's something that we definitely can look at or encourage or recommend.
And is the ASB not an option for any of this?
Not for the upland soil, no. And that's actually the timing of why we kind of split this up to do the in-water. The ASB hopefully will be be able to use for the in-water portion. We'll be able to put that in the confined disposal facility there.
Very good. All right, thank you, Brian. Those were my questions.
No, he took care of all of them. Thank you.
You pretty well covered what I was asking, and I asked one anyway, so. Tracy, if you please.
Authorize the executive director to execute a consent decree for cleanup actions at Harris Avenue Shipyard site.
Yes.
Commissioner Bell.
Yes.
Commissioner Briscoe's yes as well.
Thanks, Commissioners.
Thanks, Brian. So we have a presentation now.
Good evening, Kurt Baumgarten, Port Environmental Planner. So I'm here to introduce a few folks who are going to give a talk this evening on the Maritime Washington National Heritage Area. And a number of years ago, the development of the heritage area came to staff's attention, and we looked into it and worked on making sure that some of the port areas that folks might want to visit were kind of put forward and put on a map, and then kind of bounced along for a little bit, and the area finally came to fruition. And then it was brought back to our attention recently that there'd be some interest in the port joining, and I believe it was Commissioner Shepard asked us to look into it a little more. And it seemed like a real good fit, and so we went ahead and actually became a partner member of the Heritage Area. And so tonight we have Alex Gradwell, who's the program director, Steve Walker, who's also a board member, and then he's also working Waterfront Coalition. Actually, what we need is oh, there it is. It is actually this one. Okay, thank you. And then Dan Tucker, also who's executive director working Waterfront Coalition. And then there's some other local partners that we kind of joined, which is the Working Waterfront Coalition, City of Bellingham, Community Boating Center, and also Sea Feast, among others in Skagit. So without further ado, Alex, thank you.
You printed my notes. Well. Hi, everyone. Hi, Commissioners. My name is Alex Gradwell. I am the Program Director for the Maritime Washington National Heritage Area. Thanks so much for having me this evening. I'm really excited to talk to you guys about the Heritage Area and what it means that the Port of Bellingham is now a partner. First, I want to thank you guys so much for joining as a partner, Commissioners and staff. We're really excited to have you guys participating and really looking forward to working with you to celebrate Whatcom County's maritime heritage. I'm going to do a quick overview, and if folks still have questions at the end, that's totally fine, happy to answer. The short version is that the Maritime Washington National Heritage Area is here to help you preserve, share, and celebrate our state's maritime heritage, and we do that primarily in three ways. We advocate for maritime resources and ways of life, we connect residents and visitors with maritime stories and places, and we support those who steward and share that maritime heritage. So national heritage areas are all over the country. They're not just in Washington. National heritage areas are places that are designated by Congress as landscapes of national importance. And what that means is that it's a place, a landscape, where natural, cultural, historical resources all comes together to tell a significant story about who we are as a country. Each national heritage area focuses on a completely different story. You see some photos here. The top is Gullah Geechee, which is in the Carolinas. The bottom is Silos and Smokestacks in Iowa. We are actually the only one that focuses entirely on maritime heritage, so I like to really rub that in all the other national heritage areas' faces as a point of pride. What kind of brings all national heritage areas together, though, is that we all receive financial and technical support from the National Park Service, but we're not traditional park units. So national heritage areas don't own land, we're not regulatory, we're not going to tell anyone what they can and cannot do with their property. Instead, our job is to build public-private partnerships to better tell the stories of these places and support communities in preserving what makes them so special. So each national heritage area, rather than being run by the National Park Service, is actually facilitated by a local coordinating entity, which is usually a locally based nonprofit, which is the case for ours as well. So you see a map here of the Maritime Washington National Heritage Area. We got our designation from Congress in 2019 after over a decade of advocacy by folks in the region who really wanted to see this designation happen. It extends 3,000 miles of coastline from the bottom of Grays Harbor, so about Westport, to the Canadian border, including all of Puget Sound and the islands. It extends a 1/4 mile inland from the mean high tide line, so it's a very narrow band along the shoreline. It includes a really wide range of governments and tribes and port districts and cities and nonprofits. We have a really diverse and wonderful area here with a lot of people who care a lot about maritime heritage. And as I mentioned, we are facilitated locally by a nonprofit with the Washington Trust for Historic Preservation. I know some folks might be familiar with our work because we also facilitate the state's Main Street program, of which, of course, Bellingham is a member. So the mission of the Heritage Area is to support a network that strengthens the maritime community and helps connect residents with the stories, experiences, resources, and cultures of our saltwater shores and waterways. So what does that actually mean? As I mentioned, we really do 3 main things. So first is around advocacy to help preserve the region's unique maritime identity that is past, present, and future. So it's not just about the history, our maritime history, it's also about our modern day maritime culture. We also really work to connect residents with our maritime heritage through storytelling, heritage tourism, and then promotion of experiences. And then last but certainly not least, we support a network of formal partners who help advance our state's maritime heritage, and then we aim to provide those partners with resources so that they can do that better. So what does that really look like for residents? That looks like a centralized source of information about maritime sites and activities. It looks like travel itineraries and promotion and understanding of how you can go and experience maritime heritage in your own community. It means stories online and in public spaces through new exhibits, through speaker series. It means public events that are either hosted by us or sponsored by us in your own communities. And it means support for the maritime organizations in your community that you know and love. So just as 1 or 2 examples, this past year we supported KMRE's Love Your Waterfront radio series, which I'm sure Dan can speak much more about than I can. And we also supported Bellingham Sea Feast to bring the work of tribal artists and dancers to Sea Feast in 2024. So the partner network that the Port of Bellingham has now joined, what have you guys signed up for? This partner network is really meant to be a cross-sector network that of folks coming together to learn, share information, maximize resources, and support each other in sharing our maritime heritage. So any organization, local government entity, or tribe whose work is aligned with, the preservation, celebration of maritime heritage is eligible to join. We have 58 partners throughout the region, which includes other ports like the Port of Coupeville and Port of Port Angeles. Recently, the City of Bellingham joined. Actually, the Washington Public Ports Association recently joined as well. So we're really excited to be welcoming more port voices into this partner network. It also includes nonprofits and festivals, so everything from small volunteer historical societies like the Point Roberts Historical Society to the Dungeness Crab Festival in Port Angeles, another new partner I'm very excited about, and then larger organizations like the Center for Wooden Boats in Seattle. So what does it mean to be a partner? What do you get access to as a partner of Maritime Washington, and what can the port now take advantage of? We host learning opportunities like workshops and field trips for our partners. We have a lot of regional networking events, including an annual partner meeting where we bring everyone together for a day of learning, and we try to address some issues that partners across the region have identified that are of interest. We have a monthly partners-only newsletter that has curated funding opportunities, trainings, resources. We have an online resource library. We offer scholarships for folks from our partner organizations to attend trainings and conferences related to really anything, as long as you can make the case that it's related to maritime heritage. And I'll say that applies to all of these resources are available to anyone who works with our partners. So it could be a commissioner, it can be staff, it can even be if you have volunteers that help with your events and programs, they're eligible to attend these as well. And then, of course, being a partner, you also get to use our Partner of logo. We'll help you promote your activities and your programs and your stories. Like we really want to amplify what our partners want us to amplify. On your part, you commit to supporting other partners by sharing information and ideas. We have an annual survey that we put out to all of our partners to try to identify those topics that folks want to learn more about. And we also ask that you keep us in the loop on your maritime heritage activities so we can support you through publicity, advice, letters of support. We are here to support you in many ways, but we need to know how we can do so. So basically, if you're working on a project related to maritime heritage, whether it's preservation of a historic building, putting up new interpretive signage, running a walking tour, let us know and we can talk about how we might be able to support that or help you promote it. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Dan.
So we initially approached this conversation and we were actually going to ask you guys to fill in what assets you could think of in Bellingham and Whatcom County that you would be most proud to highlight. Staff kindly asked us to come up with a list on your behalf. So just to highlight a couple of these, we do have several unique tenants here at the port. You guys are well aware we have Alaska Marine Highway and Schooner Zodiac down in Fairhaven, which was featured on the previous slide if you didn't notice. Bellingham Cold Storage, which is an anchor tenant along our waterfront, and we're very proud to have Dockside Market as not necessarily a full-on tenant, but is an activity that we host. Commercial fishing fleets, we have the largest native fishing fleet in the United States hosted right here in the county. The Northwest Maritime Apprenticeship Program, which is a unique to this region type of apprenticeship program that we're operating. It's not got a analog anywhere else in the United States. And then we have state-of-the-art industry like All-American Marine, Northline Seafoods, Astraeus Ocean Systems, and Corvus Energy that are pushing the boundaries of maritime technology and innovation. We have successful public festivals like Sea Feast, Tune Up, Fire and Story, Ski to Sea, and now coming this year, Race Week. And if you haven't heard about that, contact me, I can tell you all about it, but it used to be a really big event down in Anacortes. They grew out of Anacortes and they are coming here to Bellingham. They're going to bring over 100 racing teams, several hundred people and crew. It's going to be a big week-long event in, I think, July. Environmental leadership, as we have just heard from Brian, we have shoreline restoration projects and Bellingham Bay cleanup sites that are breaking old ground into new ground again, in sometimes really cool and innovative ways themselves. So we could celebrate that. Having an innovative portal development, including the Portal Village down there, very cool site with the pump track as well, way to bring the community down into an area. So we have all these ways that we have, through environmental leadership, created really cool spaces. Engaging learning opportunities. We have the Marine Life Center, the cruise terminal, the Safe Return Memorial out at Zwannig Point Park. We have the Harbor Walk and signage in the Plover, and many others that I am not mentioning, the APA Museum, for example. So all of those, along with our vital infrastructure from the harbor, the shipping terminal, our working waterfronts, and our commercial and recreational launches, and our passenger rail access, which is huge. We kind of often don't mention rail alongside maritime, but they do go hand in hand. So all of these together paint a picture of a wide portfolio of assets that we could highlight. Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. So not just the tribal fishing fleet, but also our local fishing fleet as well. Absolutely. And that's something that we would really love to highlight more, particularly our organization. But yes, indeed. It's which one? Oh.
Sorry.
And then we also were going to ask you what challenges that you thought you might face in promoting these maritime heritage sites and events. And again, we're going to leave that up to you guys, but we asked the staff if they would actually take a look at the list of highlights that we had and come up with a list of challenges that they may face in doing so. And of course, funding is top of the list. And sub down from that is ongoing maintenance that takes funding. But permitting, the long wait for permits can be a challenge. Community engagement can be a challenge, especially storytelling. When we talk about how the public engages with our waterfronts, we have had some very lively discussions around that in the last couple of years. And balancing community interests goes along with that engagement. Collaboration with partner organizations, That can also be a challenge depending on the organizations we want to bring on board. Sometimes it's difficult to reach people. Sometimes those partnerships are so nebulous that you can't nail a framework down enough to start collaboration. So having, again, going back to balancing community interest and engagement, having those conversations to build that collaboration can be a challenge. Staff resources, and this is something that maybe Kirk could elaborate more on, but being able to have the staff hours and time to manage those projects, and then prioritization goes, I'm assuming, right in hand with that. And then the non-maritime development pressures, and that is something that we're, as an organization, keenly aware of, that can take away from the highlight that you would otherwise bring, because when a developer comes in that doesn't have that background in maritime, doesn't have the connection to the area, it can sometimes be very difficult to get them invested in bringing highlights of the local area into that building. I would like to highlight Boardmill Group. They have been an amazing partner in seeking out that partnership to bring those highlights into their building, and they've worked with us and the Maritime Heritage Museum in discussions on how to do that. Skilled workforce development is another one, and again, that's something that the highlight for the Northwest Maritime Apprenticeship Program. But if we don't have the workforce that can keep those businesses sustained, if we don't have the workforce that can keep fishing and keep our fleets maintained, that heritage goes away. So those are challenges that the staff has identified for you guys. And I'm curious, and I will just put this out for a quick question, if you guys have any other additions to either the highlights or the priorities, feel free to shout them out. I know the fishing fleet outside the tribal fishing fleet was one, but do you guys have any others? That was a pretty comprehensive list, so it's no worries if you don't.
You familiar with the term presentation?
I think just one, it's not exactly fitting the list, but things we're doing at our waterfronts include some pretty innovative microgrids for our district energy system at the waterfront district, looking at opportunities for our shipping terminal as well with shore power. So I think just trying to think about energy in creative ways for both production, storage, and use.
Well, I'm going to turn it back over to Alex to finish up. Good.
Well, thank you. That's really helpful. And I know this is a presentation, but I do like a little interaction, forced or otherwise. Because really, I think one of the main things that Maritime Washington can do is help share those stories, those things that you're proud of, both with local residents and regionally. Because we do have a larger platform. I always joke that we're just the megaphone, right? Like, you tell us the maritime stories that you're proud of, and we can be that megaphone. So do keep us in mind for that. A few ways that folks can get involved, and again, this is commissioners and staff. You can attend a field trip to network with other partners, and our field trips this year are really focused on sharing stories and storytelling through tours and signage. So we have one in just a few weeks at Deception Pass State Park, where we're going to be talking with a parks interpreter about how they share stories there. In July, we'll be going to the Seattle waterfront to see some of the new interpretive signage they're putting in as part of the viaduct removal and public park development. We also have a resource library where we have trainings and guides and lists of funding opportunities. And again, that is available to anyone with the port. I'd also ask you guys to mark your calendars for our annual partner meeting in October, which is associated with the Places Conference, which is a placemaking conference, October 8 through 10. You can also bring us in to support a specific project. So if you're working on new signage and you want some input, or you need someone to write a letter of support for a grant, like, we are here to help with that. I also wanted to flag that we are working with, I can't see Lindsay now. There we go. Visit Bellingham, Whatcom County to create a regional brochure highlighting maritime heritage locations in Whatcom County. This is actually a project that we're going to hopefully extend to the whole region, but we're piloting it here. So this is currently in the works, and if the port has sites that you would like to see highlighted through this brochure, sure, we would love to know what those are. So we'll be following up to get your input on that. And then next year, we will also be having a grant program. So the port is welcome to apply for grants for any projects that interpret or preserve maritime heritage, and we do take that pretty widely. So that is what I had for this presentation. Do you guys have any questions?
Not at the moment.
Nope, I think you covered it. Thank you.
And I don't believe I have any either. I think I brought up one point. I think that, nice presentation, and hopefully we can, and thank you to staff for putting this together for us. Appreciate that, so that we didn't have to sit up here and bumble through it. But I think it's a great program.
Well, we're really glad to have you guys on board. Thank you.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of our end of our presentations, and now we have our end of meeting public comment. If anyone would like to speak, I don't know, we have online working at this point? No? Nobody's online, okay. Anybody, any questions, anything? An April Fool's joke, anything? Please, step forward.
Hi, I'm Sue Bussinger, and I'm here representing America's Boating Club of Bellingham, formerly Bellingham Sail and Power Squadron. We are partners of the Maritime Heritage Association, and our primary focus for 65 years in Bellingham has been boater education, boater safety education. And we have a membership of around 150 at a time when membership in organizations has really been dropping. We have bucked the tide on that. We monthly have meetings that bring 50 to 60 members into a meeting space. And most of those members are customers of either the Blaine Harbor or Squalicum Harbor. We have used space for education at Bellingham Technical College, at Squalicum Yacht Club, and also at Bellingham Yacht Club, which of course we have. And we've also used some port facilities like Squalicum Boathouse for events. We participate in any event that brings people to the waterfront. But the pitch I'm making is that it's really difficult to find meeting space that meets our needs, and we're really outgrowing the space that we're currently renting at Bellingham Yacht Club for our monthly meetings. I think, the port, the community would benefit by having a community facility that would meet the needs of, we've also used meeting space at the Community Boating Center also. So I think it would benefit a maritime community to have public space where groups like this that are trying to promote safety on the water could meet and play out their mission. So that would be my hope, that maybe with Maritime Heritage bringing a consortium of people together, that we might be able to pull the port into that and see if there isn't a space somewhere in the port properties that we could use for meeting space. That's it.
How many people would it need to accommodate?
Well, we currently have about anywhere between 50 and 60 people coming to our monthly meetings. But the one key thing is that we also need kitchen space, because it's a dinner meeting, which is, I think, one big draw for our meetings. And that's not easy to find in Bellingham. And the other challenge, even though there are community meeting spaces, very few of those, if any, will allow you to reserve out, months worth of meeting spaces so that you can consistently say to your members, this is where we meet. We meet here every month. So kitchen space, room for at least 50 to 60 people and maybe more as we grow. And, it needs all of the technology that this room has to be able to adequately present speakers and things like that with the technology that they need. So consider that, please.
Well, thank you. We'll talk internally and see what we could come up with something or some ideas anyways. All right. Anyone else care to speak?
I am Andrew Shelton, working Waterfront Coalition. Here to tell you all about the Tide to Table event. Dan, don't laugh. April 26th. It's Kentucky Derby themed. You don't have to dress up. I'm going to be in a sweatshirt because I hate dressing up. But we're going to have dope seafood. We're going to raise money for the apprenticeship program, which is the people that are going to be fixing all your boats in 10 years instead of staring at phones. We need the kids into the workforce, not looking at their email, looking at Instagram. So it's a super good cause. We expect all of you to be there. Okay. It's the real deal. But yeah, it's going to be fun. So Tide to Table, April 26th at the Bellwether Conference Center.
Now, I heard you have to wear a big hat.
No big hats necessary.
I saw that in the letter.
I'm going to wear a hoodie. Commissioner Briscoe, you can show up dressed like a total slouch fisherman. Yeah, we'll still let you in.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak?
Can I bring my horse?
A thought just came into my brain while I was sitting there to follow up on my comment about the derelict and abandoned vessels. I know we have to have 75% occupancy in the marina for you guys to do the increase every year. If we got rid of the derelict, abandoned, ugly vessels that are there, it would bring more room for the people that are actually going to pay and want to be in the port. And that will be affecting your bottom line as well as for you to be able to do things we need done at the port.
Thank you. Anyone else? Going once, going twice? Okay, we're going to move on to other business. You want to go first?
Sure.
All right, Commissioner Shepard.
I've got a couple of my own, and then I just wanted to tag on a few of the comments that we've had today. Let's see, maybe we'll start with some of the comments. Granary tenants and parking. We've talked about parking before. We recognize this is a challenge. I saw there are a number of other things in the letter, some that are harder for us to address because we don't own the building or operate the building, but we can certainly be in conversation with the building operator for some of these things that you've identified. Sounds like parking's the biggest squeeze point. What are our thoughts, Rob?
Staff actually met this week on that subject. We're talking about expanding the lot, probably the other direction from the granary, though, just because that parcel is probably the most developable parcel. But so we're talking about going towards the digesters by expanding that lot. We're also in talks with Rivian about installing charging station. Actually, probably shouldn't have said that because we're under, never mind. I didn't say that. But we are talking about expanding the parking lot. That will be, I think, somewhere between 80 and 100 spaces. When we do that, because it's moving away from the granary building, we would then sign more of the spaces that are on the, I guess it's the east side of that parking lot, that would be granary parking only. In addition to that, we are going to expand the lot over behind the board mill building. And that lot then will become more the pump track lot. And we're going to try and sign the gravel parking lot off Granary to say pump track parking is over on the other side. So if we can divert a lot of the pump track parking and the Portal Village parking over to the board mill, that should free up some of the Granary parking.
Okay. What kind of timeline?
Can't say to that because it involves permitting. So we need to go through that process, and we have just begun. The discussions this week were very kind of our kickoff on how that's going to work. And again, this will be an interim lot. It won't be a permanent lot. It needs to be an interim lot until we come to a resolution with Harcourt as to what that property looks like.
And are all these, I mean, this is a privately owned lot that doesn't have sufficient parking built by the owner of that building. Are we on the hook for doing all of this just because we care about the property and want it to be successful?
Well, we want to be good neighbors and good citizens and get them parking. But yeah, there was a conversation I was going to have with the commissioners, probably individually, and just discuss what your appetite is for charging for those parking, for if they're going to be reserved specifically for the granary. If there's not appetite for do that, then yeah, it would just be us doing the good thing.
Yeah. You can see we're already engaged, and we appreciate the letter, and we'll keep in contact. And I think there's a couple other things in here we can probably look at as well. Some of them are going to be really up to us just making sure the building operator is informed and knowledgeable. I did see something about accessible parking. There is ADA parking on the site.
The granary has parking right outside of it. It's a very limited number of stalls. There's no reason they couldn't make those ADA only. And then we have a couple ADA stalls in the granary lot as well, and those are the paved stalls, not the gravel stalls there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
So those couple spots along the paved area just on I guess that's the east side of the building, none of those are ADA?
You're talking about on the granary building plot itself?
Yeah, right by the
I don't
ice cream
believe any of
place.
those are ADA, no.
They got a permit without any ADA accessible spots
I
on the
believe
site?
they're required for zero parking because it was a historical building.
Wow, okay, well. Yeah.
So I'd like to
So I
weigh in on
remember
that.
we had a talk about the construction crew filling the parking lot, and you were going to speak. Has that gone forward at all?
Well, I did speak to them about that, but I believe the construction crews are still using the parking lot. So I will speak to Louis again, but yeah, when I go by there, there's a lot of construction traffic in that. The portal's not open right now. The pump track's not open right now, and the parking lot is pretty full.
So
It's not all granary.
opinion is we speak to Harcourt one more time, and if they don't do something, we start towing.
It's a little more complicated than that because I think we'll have to do a little more conversation with legal on that, but I don't believe we have the right to tow those vehicles.
Well, whose property is the parking lot?
The parking lot is our property. We went 50-50 on building it with Harcourt, so they do have rights to half the spaces in there. It was supposed to be an informal relationship. No one thought that everything would be that busy down there, so that's why I'm trying to help the problem by installing another parking lot in there. But I can't solve ADA parking at the granary building. I don't know how to do that.
I get that.
I would support a charging scheme because I think that limits, so you don't have to do this one-on-one. I can tell you where I sit today. I do believe that limits the number of people who were there taking up spaces that aren't actually using it. I also think a charging scheme can give some kind of a voucher to vendors in the granary building where they can actually validate parking for or use that as an incentive so that there's always something there for their use. And if you do put some kind of a charging station in there and they have the ability to validate that, and we can even work on a rate for them that is significantly different from what the public would pay. But then the public would be charged with either paying for it or not parking there at all. And I think there is some mix in that would keep cars coming in, give them the availability, and would give us the revenues we need to upkeep the property.
And when I was talking about charging for parking, I was more the model would be the tenants would pay to reserve their own spots because that's obviously much simpler from a tracking. When you start talking about charging individual users, you're talking about installing a bunch of infrastructure that's going to run you $100,000.
Start talking about, folks that come to that pump track with their children that don't have a lot of money to use that facility. You start putting a monetary burden on the pump track.
And you put a gate.
What about just a sign that it was vendor specific? So you got company XYZ, this is company XYZ spot, and then we have the ability to tow that. All others will be towed. So company XYZ calls me up and says, hey, someone's in my spot, it's not my customer, now we can tow them. And then company XYZ pays, I'm talking about nominal fee here, just to make sure that we can help.
I think some hybrid of that is valuable. And I don't think we need a lot of infrastructure if we're going to do some kind of a charge, and we just need a gate with a.
I want to keep it simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be.
Yeah, I don't think
Simpler is better.
Simple is good, tow truck is good.
Reserve parking for vendors. How many spaces do you think the granary needs? You guys have had a lot of meetings on that. Can you do me a favor when you answer that?
I'm not a civil engineer, so I don't know that equation. I can tell you that, just one tenant at the granary needs 1,000 people to come through a month. So what does that look like for turnover and people coming in and with cars? I don't know. I've also heard that there was a moment in time where some people went rogue and like moved the barriers so that people could park where we want there to be parking. And they estimated it was like 80 to 100 spots, and that alleviated the problem. But, you know, when you're talking about moving the parking options further away from us, it just isolates us from the community. You know, we're sort of on the edge there, and people are confused how to get to us. Parking 50 feet away is like, it has to be explained. And so it would be nice. Signage is great, but if it's not enforced, then I don't know that that even makes sense.
So you would like to have the parking directly across from the granary and that gravel. Am I hearing this correct?
That's what we want, parking to be closer to us so that people look at our building and look at a place to park and can put those two things together.
So I guess my question is, if Harcourt's using our property, why can't we use their property?
Well, it's not their property.
MDA.
It's not their property. It's still our property. But developing a parking lot costs a lot of money. I don't want to develop a parking lot that costs a lot of money and then that property's turned around being developed. That's just throwing that money away. So I think we've got to put the parking where it's not going to be developed in the near future.
But what does near future mean? Because if it's 5 years, 10 years, that could make a really big difference for us. You know, that's the length of our leases. So if there's parking available to us in that amount of time before it needs to evolve and change, that's a huge impact, a positive impact for our businesses there that are currently struggling. You know, we love all the events that are going on, but all of that we're all fighting for this limited infrastructure. And that's not a great feeling.
Okay, well, we're going to work on it. We'll see what we can come up with.
We are so grateful. And I put in our letter when we're available to meet as a collective, you know, so we would love to keep the conversation going and work with you.
Something figured out.
And I think,
Keep addressing this, and I think, you know, the other things just come to mind is WTA Bus is providing
That's been
service,
great,
which is
yes.
great, providing some more options. We want to keep pushing people to bike and walk, and we are seeing more residences open up in walking distance of the granary, both those at the waterfront by Harcourt, and then future developments with the board mill and other projects, phase 2 of the millworks. And so we are going to see that positive push of people who live down there and can walk or scoot or whatever they want to do to get there in easy fashion. And so I know that's a little bit in the future, and we're trying to address some immediate needs, but that's what I do see coming on the horizon as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So, you know, the Harcourt just got an occupancy certificate for their condo building, and there's a huge parking lot under there. Have you talked to them at all about using some of those parking spots, which would be the closest to the granary building because they're on the same side as the street?
No. No, and that hasn't been offered.
Have you asked them?
Well, I personally haven't, but we are a collective of businesses, so there's other conversations that could be going on that I don't know about. And I could bring that back to the group.
I think,
Why is there construction crew parking in the basement?
well, some of those I think are too big to park in their structure, but Harcourt owns the condos and they own the granary. It seems like it should be them solving this problem and putting you into the structure.
Wouldn't it come to mind?
Well, and I hear you, but this then becomes the conversation we don't love, where it's like the other person should help you, not us. And that doesn't help us get our customers to the building. We're all there because we love the granary. We love this new part of town. We want to be a positive part of the development, and we just need a little bit of support.
And Rob and I have been there and heard the anger, and we've heard some of the angst. And I just can't say this more boldly. We don't own that anymore. We don't. We don't own the condo development anymore. Your building is owned by Harcourt. The parking lot in the condos is owned by Harcourt. We would love to stop pointing fingers as well. However, we don't own it. All we have.
But did you say that you do own the lot across the street?
We want to help you.
So that is what we're asking about.
it's like me trying to be responsible for my neighbor's rental property because they've got too many cars sitting in their yard and they want me to take those cars into my house, right? That's exactly what you're asking. You're saying, hey, my neighbor's got a bunch of cars parked in their lot and it's clogging up the street. Would you guys mind parking them in your property? That's
I mean,
essentially the analogy.
Sure, but respectfully, it's not a house, it's a part of town that is new and just needs a little more attention. That's all.
And I think we do contribute to the use because we've installed things like the pump track and the container village. We have festivals, and that use does contribute to demands on the parking lot. And so I think we do have a role in here. We're going to try and thread the needle on it and see where we can get to. Our team has definitely already been talking about it, but
Great.
we'll do what we can. You can see there's some tension here with us and what we can and can't
Well,
do.
I don't want to create tension either, but there's frustration on our part because we offer up solutions. We told, nope, that's not just this one parking lot is the only thing we want developed. And it's got to be, if we're going to give, then there has to be some give everywhere. And we're trying to help you solve the problem, but it may not be the exact parcel that you want it to be.
That's great. And we want to hear any solutions, and we're happy to work with you on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you were heard, loud and clear.
Okay.
And we feel the pain, so
Yeah.
don't.
And we did know this about, before you spoke, we've been talking about for about a month, trying to figure out how to fix what's not right over there.
Sure. Well, we appreciate it, so thank you.
Okay.
Anyone, let's see.
I'm still going down my list here.
Okay.
That got to one public comment. Derelict vessels, docks, walkways, and Blaine Harbor. I guess my first.
My thunder.
Oh, I know. I just took all my notes and they're all coming up. Have we done this? We had a program in Squalicum where the team went around and looked for boats that didn't have registration. And we implemented a program to connect with those owners to get those boats registered or get them on a list for getting out. Did we do the same thing in Blaine? I can't remember if Tiffany implemented that both.
It was port-wide.
Port-wide, okay.
Aaron might be able to shed a little bit of light for us, I'm thinking.
Here, I was looking for someone to blame.
Yeah.
Well, I was hoping Andy was gonna be here, but I don't see him. Do you know if any of those boats that are spoken to, I know you haven't seen the pictures, but
Yeah, I haven't seen the pictures. That program was ran up in Blaine also, the vessel registration program. So Andy's working his way through it also.
Okay. So we should know if a boat doesn't have registration. I mean, that we get boats who are, maybe on their way to being derelict. They're still paying their moorage fee. They've got their registration current. And so we then are left making potentially subjective calls or trying to figure out what are the other criteria we have to identify a boat that is really no longer seaworthy or no longer belongs in our harbor.
And I'm hearing a lot of issues in Blaine, so I'm going to suggest, because we don't have Andy here and we don't have Tiffany here, that we put this on the agenda for the April 15th meeting. We actually have an agenda item, Blaine Harbor, and we can cover everything that was discussed here at that meeting and have some good answers for them.
Okay.
Rather than just kind of, because it's not fair to Aaron, who does Squalicum.
Yeah.
But I can't answer your question about the flows because we did.
So if you're going to speak, we have to have you at the microphone.
All right. I'll come back to that.
The Windy City that I showed you pictures of, that it's just been a real derelict. The owners left, the engine got pulled out. It's just been sitting there. Nobody wants it. Derelict vessels that have been designated as a derelict vessel needs to be removed. It's an ecological harm. If something happens, then we've got a spill or something else. And some of these vessels have been moved over to Gate 3 that are in port possession. And they're just sitting there. They need to be removed. I've been down in California and other ports and stuff like that. Almost every month, 1-2 times a month, they pull boats out, pull the engines out, anything they can use, chop them up in a dumpster, go away. And there's another spot awaiting for somebody. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we'll put it on the agenda for April 15th.
Will we get to talk about bird poop as well?
You bet. Yeah. Pressure washing and bird poop.
Pressure washing, bird poop, lichen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Aaron, I believe Tip,
Your talker there.
with regards to the dock and the moss, We couldn't pressure wash. Environmental wouldn't let us pressure wash, but we did purchase a machine towards the end of the last spring or something.
Yeah, I believe that was the end of 2023, the extractor machine. It's a pressure washer and a vacuum at the same time,
Right.
yes.
Is that working?
Yes.
Do we not use it in Blaine?
Actually, it started out working in Blaine. They were the first ones to use it.
We may have to get a second one. Sounds like it's pretty busy in use.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So I knew there was a machine we'd purchased.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. And for Birds on Breaker, we own that breaker?
We own the breakwater there. I'm going to have to get with the environmental team and find out what we can and can't, can't do there. I'm just not familiar with that. I know there is a bird sanctuary, but it's a little bit distance from there. So
Across the street.
yeah, what we're allowed to chase away or what the mitigation efforts are to keep them off there altogether, I just don't know. So we'll address that next week too, or in 2 weeks.
I have a small dog that likes exercise. We could,
There you go.
Put her on the breakwater maybe, and she could run around after these birds. She would think that was
one
really
end, mine
fun.
on the other, we're good.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll think about creative solutions that don't involve my dog. Yeah.
Already is, my dog.
Docks, but bottom line is those pump out carts, I've watched those things just grow and grow for 10 years.
Okay.
Nobody's taking care of.
Well, we
got the
strive
message.
to have excellent service at our harbors, and we will
Come back on the
appreciate
15th.
anytime that folks have comments where we could do better. So, thank you. Couple other ones working through here. I just wanted to check with Tyler. Are we still having a update on border crossings coming up? You were going to connect with, I believe, Lori Troutman.
Yeah, Tyler Schroeder, Economic Development Director. We've been talking with Lori Troutman. She's been very busy doing a number of different things. She just
Sure, she's in demand right now.
Yeah, just participated in the Cascadia Daily Forum that was at Seaholm High School. And we are working with the tourism, the Chamber of Commerce, Lori at Western, to kind of have a circuit of presentations to the county council, the city council, and the port commission. We haven't locked down a date and a time to do that, but we are working through that.
Okay. All right, very good. I think partially from that forum, we got a number of questions recently about our airport and what we can or cannot do around federal use of our airport. Rob, do you want to walk us through the incident or the?
You bet. We had a Navy C-130 fly into our airport. I believe that was last Thursday. And crew got off the plane. Crew got back on the plane. No one else got on the plane. So there's a lot of rumors that we're lining up immigrants and boarding them on that plane and taking them someplace, but that's simply not the case. Only the crew boarded that plane. And then their questions came up, well, if it was an ICE operation, which it wasn't, but if it was an ICE operation, would you have turned it away? We ran through this in 2019 when similar operations were occurring at Boeing Field. We don't have the ability to tell a plane it can't land, and we don't have the ability to tell a plane it can't take off. That'd be a violation of our grant assurances and other federal laws. But we did talk, or ICE did approach us back in 2019, and they determined our airport was not a good fit for that operation. Just the way our airport's laid out, how they would have had to bring people through, it just did not fit their operation at the time. I don't think anything's changed why they would do that now. We have not been approached by ICE to do any kind of operations there now.
Okay. So we've had prior conversations. It's really outside of our jurisdictional authority to tell the federal government if they can or cannot fly into that airport. Is there any, has this been tested in any case law, or are there any other incidents where we've seen this, Holly, where there's been questions about use of federal airport property for immigration customs?
I'm not aware of any, but I can take a look and report back to the commission.
Okay. I think it would be useful. We're just getting questions on this, and so, so far I've been telling individuals that this is a federal facility. We don't want to jeopardize our federal funding. It's a public airport. Anyone who wants to take off and land at that airport can, especially the federal government, which owns and licenses the FAA operations there. And so we want to make sure we're being careful with our facility. for me, I want to make sure individuals in our community are safe. And I hear people and their concerns and questions around those operations, but we have to work within our limits. So anything you learn on this, Holly, I would appreciate knowing.
Yeah, we'll do. I'll put together a memo. I suspect there won't be a lot out there because other airports are going to have the same grant assurances if they accept any federal funds for airport improvement programs. It doesn't matter which type of AIP funds you're getting, there's the grant assurances, including the non-discriminatory use of the airport. So you have certain rates that you charge. Everyone, it's an open door, as Rob said. Folks can land, folks can take off, and there really isn't a lot that the port can do or say about that, whether it's ICE or, private parties, that sort of thing. But I will take a look to confirm that.
Okay, thank you. All right, and just my last thing, I got to go to the Washington Economic Development Association meetings. They had an annual conference last week, and it was really a productive event. It's great we have that organization working on behalf of ADOs like us in Olympia and statewide. And I think for our conversation we had this morning about the airport, one of the things that we didn't talk on today that was really highlighted at that conference was the needs and opportunities we have for electrical generation and storage. And PSE came and their vice president came and reported, and one of the statistics that I keep thinking of is he said by 2040 they need customers to be providing a quarter of energy production and storage on our grid. That's a lot. That's substantially more than customers are providing today. And so I think there's not only kind of a opportunity for us to participate, but really a business opportunity here. There's just not enough of this storage that's happening, and I'd like to think about that on a variety of properties within the county, including potentially at the airport. How can we participate in some of that energy storage? We're doing a good job with some of our production that we've started to do with some of our rooftops. We just have to keep working to build that out, but also this energy storage part of the equation continues to be of interest.
How does that work in, and if I hear all these rumors, that if you've got solar,
Yeah.
and right now they're taking it back from you, and then they're gonna quit doing that program, how does that fit into what that gentleman is saying? If he needs all of us to put stuff
Yeah.
on our roofs, produce electricity so they have enough,
Yep.
but yet they're not gonna,
They're not gonna what?
I guess take.
I hadn't heard that the net metering program was ending. I
haven't heard that either.
That's the first I've heard of it.
There's a lot of it, if you watch the media, there's a lot of it in the media that
Hmm.
this is going to, where we can put power back onto the grid. They're not gonna pay for it, they're just gonna take it.
Oh, yeah, this,
that's
he from PSC talked a lot about a variety of battery storage options, even things like they just helped the Olympia School District purchase a fleet of electric buses, and they're all connected to bi-directional charging so that the buses can charge on the charging network, but then offload power onto the grid to meet peak demand. Because what they really want to do is use battery storage to address peak load. And so if we can avoid buying extra power on the open market or firing up all these other generation capacity opportunities, when we may have that sitting in storage, whether that's in cars, buses, or semi-trucks battery storage. They're looking to flatten some of those peak demand curves.
So he's talking about individuals putting storage on their property.
On their properties, yeah. Or entities like governments doing that as well.
Interesting.
Yeah. So maybe some of those marginal lands that are harder to develop, maybe they're right for battery storage. All right, that was an exhaustively long list from me. I will.
Commissioner Bell.
Could have been out of here an hour ago. Just saying. Wow. Sorry. No, I just, I am, I'm in a surly mood. I just wanted to say thank you to to you and the staff for the incredible job done this morning. That's exactly what I was looking for when I made the request. I was starting to feel a lot of pressure this year coming to a close, that we weren't going to get to a lot of the things that we discussed today. And I just felt the benefit of that discussion was overwhelmingly beneficial for all of us. And I just want to say thank you. It met every expectation that I had walking away. All of the information that was provided, all of the dialogue that happened. I just want to say thanks. That meant a lot to me. Couple of things that I would like to maybe put on the agenda for next time, or at least discuss. I would just wanted to add, I think it may be beneficial for the BIAC to see some of that presentation that you had. There's a tremendous group of talented individuals on the BIAC, and to have them receive some of the same information that we got and get their feedback along the way, I think would be important.
Yeah, that's easy. We'll send that out to them.
The next one is, I've got a little bit of heartburn over the downsizing of the Board Mill Hotel. And I'm not sure what format. I do intend to bring this up with the Board Mill group. But, you know, the expectation was that we were going to have a premier site with a premier venue. And the more you think about what is being proposed, it looks less and less like something special for the waterfront and more like an ordinary hotel. And I'm not sure that's what any of us envisioned. So I don't know how we discuss this. I think maybe having them come in and have a presentation, I think I'd like to tell them that personally. But I understand the financial pressures, but I think you and I have had this discussion too. There are methods and there's ways that we could get something. And if they're not the one, I don't want to go forward. If what's on the table today, I'm not necessarily sure is what I could support. So I don't know where that fits, but.
Brian and I have had conversations with the city recently about this. I've had conversations with Commissioner Shepard about this. So I think we need to get it on an agenda. It may not be the 15th, depending on the Board Mill Group's availability. I know Ellie's traveling right now, but we'll get it on a near future agenda and have them come in here and we can have this discussion.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be meeting with the mayor and the Board Mill Group at the end of this month. And I share those concerns. You know, I think my biggest frustration is we've asked them to look at the creative capital stacks and opportunity zone financing opportunity, which Millworks team has done a fantastic job of activating to the tune of $20 million of opportunity there. And I just don't see the Board Mill Group seeing that funding opportunity in the same way. And that really could close the gap between their initial proposal and the updated one that is just not as exciting. It just isn't what we're looking for as much. And I really do think, as much as the community wants things to happen quickly, they want it done right. And we only get one shot. So I'm willing to take the time it needs to make sure we get this one right.
And I'm on the same page. I love that philosophical discussion about what we expected versus what we're being delivered. And right now, it feels like just another disappointment to a request for an RFP, right? So we get an RFP, it doesn't pan out the way we expect it to. Everybody's disappointed in the end. The product isn't exactly what we expected it to be. I just want to address it early and often.
And it's really our job to do that. If we approve that and it gets to the city, we can't look to them to have this discussion on a permitting level. Permitting is not a subjective process. Like we have an opportunity for really weighing in if this is meeting our standard and our expectations.
That's exactly right. If it gets to the permitting process, it really becomes check boxes. Did they check that box? Did they check that box? And once they've checked every box, they have to issue the permit, whereas you can subjectively say, no, this isn't what we want. So we will get this on the agenda. I'll probably shoot for the first meeting in May, and we'll get the Board Mill team in here.
And I think we were pretty clear on our expectations.
I spoke specifically when they were here. I spoke to the monetary aspect, and that's the holdup, and everything was fine. Well, you know, interest rates went up, things changed. I understand what happened. But that doesn't change what I expected to be built there. And I'm of the like mind of my fellow commissioners. I don't want what they are putting forward. And then, as Commissioner Shepard spoke to, I think there's other avenues, and I think that if they want to do this, they need to try harder, because that's not what I want.
Wow. I thought I was on an island.
Gilligan's.
Thank you for jumping on board with me, guys. That's it. And the last one is just a comment on the derelict vote. I just be aware that we are constantly looking for ways to churn new business. And this has been high on our list of priorities to figure out ways to get things that aren't revenue producing, bring in things that are revenue producing. We understand the value of having deadwood off and new growth come in. So I just wanted to address that as a commission. I'm done.
And we've moved as much stuff over to the Gate 3 side as we can so that all us commercial guys can walk by it every day. So to get it out from where it was. There's different issues with each boat. There's monetary issues with all of them because DNR does reimburse, but they don't reimburse very fast.
The most economical way for us to get boats out is for our crew to do it. We do it from A to Z. So we haul the boat out on our travel lift. Our guys go disassemble it. They recycle what they can. They dispose of what they can't recycle. It ends up being the most ecological way to do it, and it's also the most economical way to do it.
Right.
But that doesn't necessarily go as fast as everyone wants.
Right. No, and I understand that. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying they're all over on the commercial side because it's less eyesore for the folks that are on the other side of the line.
We also went without a travel lift for a while, but now our travel lift is up and running and it's effective, so we'll be able to pick up the pace.
I'll speak with Andy. Andy and I'll get together. I'll try and ask him what the plan is, because I get it. I don't like it there either. I'd like our harbor to look a lot better than it is. So, but sometimes it is what it is, and right now it kind of is what it is.
4 minutes. That's all. I'm done.
You're done? Well, you spoke to most of mine. You got another one, so it leaves me with your group. With the safety, the boating safety issues and you needing a place to meet, I'm wondering what
I think
can we or can't we do that's not.
we can't give anything away. We do offer a not-for-profit discount, so I think the best thing is for me to connect you with our meetings and events department and get you two to talking. And we've got probably 2 facilities that might meet the bill for you, but I'll put you in touch with her. They tend to book out quite a bit, but maybe we can see what. That'll help. Yeah, so I'll after this, I'll tell you, yeah.
And could you mean something like with food truck or something?
Well, if they need a kitchen access, that's probably going to be the boathouse or the dome room, because that's where you have sinks, commercial sinks and all that, so.
We're not doing prep and cooking, we just need maybe a warm oven to warm things in or keep things warm, refrigeration space so that we can.
I'll put you in contact with the right person.
You could put a kitchen in the pavilion in the corner.
A kitchen in the pavilion would help, that one, and a bathroom.
La, 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 la.
Hey, we were on your island, now you're on ours.
I got 1 foot in the water.
You're gonna take your boat away, you don't get off the island. That, I just wanted to speak to that, to see if there wasn't something we could do. That's about it for me. I'll go with public comment one last time. Is there anyone that would like to speak to something before we close the meeting? Going once? Twice?
Sorry. I did have one more thing.
Open again.
We want to put a budget retreat together for May, and we know you leave in June, but we have to start putting together our numbers for 2026. I know it seems early, but we just finished the first quarter of 2025, so it's start time to planning, and we can talk about things like kitchens in the pavilion and bathrooms and how that fits into the bigger budget picture.
Throw that in there so he's going to get a meeting.
Yeah, one of the reasons I wanted to go through all of the stuff like we're going through at the airport with all these divisions is I think it gives us a deeper dive into what's important and what's not, and then we get to weigh them. I think May is a very early time frame for that, but I know you probably need it.
I will, but I can zoom into that.
Okay. So
Getting a couple more of these under our belt before we got there, and we talked about a lot of things that took money today, right? So there's going to be a cost benefit that comes with all of this as we put them all together. And I just think,
Thanks to Elon, I'm pretty much available when I'm gone now. I mean, it's on the mass and.
I thought you were being sarcastic.
I was.
He was really thanking him.
not expect that.
Okay, so
It doesn't have to be in May to fit my time. I can,
okay.
we have good service and I can zoom in time to attend the meeting.
Okay, Tamara and I will huddle then, find a different time, and we'll propose something different.
Thank you for doing that, yeah.
Anything else? Meeting adjourned.